Wow, how have you found the last 11 days with 11 incredible speakers sharing their mission and what their definition of joy and abundance is beyond burnout? And that was our summit. I'm so excited to be here today to pop in and to see how are all of you doing and how all this information is really coming into you, integrating into you. I thought I'll just come back with some of my reflections on the whole summit and what is the one thing that I would love to share with all of you that I got out of it. And the biggest one thing, are you ready? Are you ready for this? The biggest one thing that I got from this is that I need to connect to myself, that it is time for me to connect to myself, to my body. That's pretty cool, huh? Something that's so simple, but so complex too, isn't it? And why is this so important? Because it is within the body that we've tried to run away out from. And for me, that's what I've been doing for many, many years. I've been running away from what the body has been telling me, from my intuition, from what my heart was telling me, from what my values were telling me, because I had no idea that that was what I needed to do. I lost my mom when I was 13. I had to look after her since I was 7. And there was no time for love. There was no time for nurture for me. And I saw her suffering under cancer. So the body felt very toxic for me, that it was almost a betrayal when I saw her go through that suffering. And at the end of the day, when she left and she passed on, I felt rejected. So I rejected my body in the process. And what happened when I rejected my body in the process? I then did not understand how I would move in the world. So I used other people as prompts, which we all do as a child. And as we use other people as prompts, we get used to doing that. And we get used to judging ourselves, going, if that person can do it, then I can do it. Why can't I do it? And as we continue to do that, we end up self-rejecting. And during that self-rejection, we reject our body, we reject our thoughts. We don't trust ourselves. And so I didn't trust myself. So I went through life not trusting myself at all. Now I'm a great manifester in some ways. I wanted to be a scientist. I became a scientist. And I became a scientist for all the reasons that I thought was right for me, which was the accolades, people look up to you going, wow, you're a scientist. And, it looked as if I'm clever and I would be able to travel around the world. I would be able to, to have this admiration of the world around me. But do you know one thing? I did not have the admiration in me for myself. And so I self-sabotaged a lot of different things. I self-sabotaged relationships because once they weren't giving me what I wanted, what I thought I wanted, in terms of the admiration, the ability to, are you giving me my joy? Are you giving me my abundance? When relationships and circumstances, I would just reject it before it rejected me. And it came to a point where I could not even feel happiness, not even happiness. I could not even feel, the simple gratitude and the simple joy that life was giving to me. The simple joy of having a job, a simple joy of having a safe environment to live in. And one day I woke up and I had gut problems, health problems, and my relationships weren't great at work and at home. And I felt really stuck. I felt I have all these things in the world, but why aren't I happy? Why aren't I joyful? I still wanted more. Why? Because there was not a deep satisfaction in my body. I felt very disconnected. So in my whole research for what was happening to me, because I knew I couldn't foresee that to do that for so long, I discovered that I needed to start feeling all my feelings that I put aside, all those emotions that I suppressed as a child, because I didn't want to be hurt by the rejection of my mom passing away and the rejection of my body, just in case I got cancer like her, all that fear. So I sat back and I discovered breath work. That was my tool to come back to my body, because we can't live life if we don't breathe. And we often breathe like this, a reflection on how we breathe is how we move in the world sometimes. And so I was breathing like that, really stuck in my chest. And as I opened that up to breathe and opened up to my body and allowing my body, giving it permission to be how it wanted to be, and then it started opening up a whole plethora of different emotions that I had to start feeling through. And that's where it's really important that, what our speakers were telling us. So Melanie, she says, emotion is energy, and it's energy. And she went through this whole process of depression and anxiety and overachievement, because it was all about trying to deal with this energy that's in her body, and she doesn't quite know what to do with it, right? And so a part of her, with those expectations and the need for external validation, had to die. And so a part of her had to die in order for more, for things to come in that she was more open to, that would be part of her joy and abundance of her life. Anyway, Vesna talking about self-sabotage, and that's what we all do when we're living in this uncertainty, in terms of not trusting ourselves, not trusting our bodies, and we're relying on external factors, and people are pushing our buttons, and we don't know what those buttons are, because we haven't figured it out for ourselves yet. And it's only when we figure out what are those buttons and why those emotions are coming up for this random person that suddenly made us really upset, or this person that suddenly made upset, and it's not upset for 90 seconds, which is what people say emotions are. When all the chemicals go through your body, you got about 90 seconds to an hour where then it gets out of your system, and then so any emotion that you feel after that means that you're hanging on to something. So this is a great guideline that I use for myself. Anyway, coming back to that someone's pushing your buttons and you're blaming them, shaming them, you're feeling, and that inadvertently feel guilt and everything that comes around with that feeling. And you start self-sabotaging yourself, and it's all about blaming the other person, but you don't realize actually where it's coming from, and you don't feel it in your body, and all those conflicting things in your body are you just don't feel, you feel frustrated, you feel angry, and it's all in your body, it's being held there. And it is a way of how we're rejecting it, because we don't understand how to do it, how to sense what's happening in our body. And we don't eat properly, we don't put the right nutrition in the body by not listening to our bodies. We don't rest properly, so it affects our hormones and how we work in the world as well. And that was all talked about by Christine Garvin, about how being in that state of not being in connection with our body, in connection with our emotions, and allowing all that to flow through us, can affect how our cycles are, how we look after ourselves, determines what we want to eat, because our bodies are now going, oh, you're not looking after me, there must be a threat somewhere in the environment. It's not a time to rest and digest. I'm just going to eat every single thing that gives me energy so that I can protect and run if I need to. And our bodies are not made to do that all the time. Our bodies are made to do into cycles of rest and cycles of absorption of nutrition, absorption of what we need in terms of safety. So we're coming back into, I'm coming back into this body. And then and what happens is we lose touch of what's around us, what's being present. And what I feel that joy and abundance is this deep seated knowing that you have the right to exist. You have the right to feel how you need to feel, to be who you are, what you are in this present moment. You have the right to feel safe in your body. We are all human beings. So I have this beautiful necklace here, and it's got all these lines in here. These lines are our DNA. It's actually lines representing your barcodes, representing the human DNA, the human genome. We are all the same, but different. So that deep-seated knowing of joy and abundance is about deeply knowing that we are a unique human being. We all have different energy blueprints. And the only way we can help ourselves is not to go down a mold or a path that doesn't resonate with us. It's going down a path that feels right in your body. And the only way it feels right in your body is if you start connecting back to your body. And what's connecting back? Connecting back is telling your body that you are safe to sit in it. And that's why when Holly started to talk about gratitude, and Christy Sullivan talking about the human design and self-care based on that human design, it's really important. And Jenny was talking about self-care, self-love. Courtney talking about pleasure, touching, feeling safe in your body. And finally, Tenmit working with marginalized communities that there is, constant threat around them all the time. That is real. The only safe place that we have is in here, it's in our bodies. And so the one thing is can we come back to our bodies? Can we allow ourselves to breathe? Can we allow ourselves that gratitude? Can we allow ourselves that pleasure? Can we allow ourselves to fill that cup, no matter how it is? Everyone is different. We all have our human DNA, but yet we're unique. And this is such an important, for me, such an important thing that when I start to reconnect with myself, I start to trust myself. And when I start to trust myself, I start to release all that holding on of energy that exhausts me for being constantly on alert, for people giving me validation, for the environment giving me validation. So that's kind of my little take-home message from the summit. There's so much more to delve into, and from the depths of my heart and from the depths of that sense of that strength of joy and abundance coming back up, I'm starting to really sit with whatever and Jill was talking about, where they talked about different aspects of knowing what you really want, knowing your values, knowing how that aligns with you. And you will know that happens when you start trusting yourself, and it's simple yet quite difficult at times. And it's a process and it's a journey. And so when you start reconnecting and trusting yourself with that, you start to understand what your values are and how you live your life through those values to each other, your values, not someone else's. And those values can change, of course. And then from those place of value, of values, your value, you can come then make those choices that you need to how to look after your body, what sort of self-care do you need, how you will come and communicate with your body. A mentor of mine calls this the reconnection revolution. It's a time to reconnect with ourselves, because that disconnection has caused a lot of pain and suffering in our lives, such that we start, sort of grasping at straws, grasping at things that we want to feel happy, but really what we really want is a remembering of joy. What is that joy in ourselves? Well, how do we get that? And how do we balance ourselves out so that we know, and our nervous systems out, so that we know that when even regardless of what's happening around us, we can sit, stop, reconnect, feel safe, rebalance our nervous system, and then get that touchstone, that grounding, that joy and abundance, that we have the right for that. And then we step out in the world in our own strength and our own greatness. So if you are still unraveling all this for yourself and trying to figure out, how does this all make sense to you, feel free to reach out to me. Feel free to reach out to any of the speakers that have really resonated with you. We're all here to mentor you through the process, to hold you, to guide you, to nurture you, because we've been through that before with all our stories. Our stories are all different, but still in the same way, where we all had to reconnect with what we want, what we truly want. And from that place of reconnection of what we want, it releases that energy of holding. So we're out of overwhelm, we're out of being burnt out by trying too hard. And then in that process, that overflows to everyone else. And they can feel it from you. And opportunities will rise and come up because you're more open to it instead of being in this little tunnel or this little box. So thank you for listening for this summit. Thank you for being part of it, part of the conversation. This conversation will keep going. And so stay tuned through the emails and through the newsletters, because there will be other workshops and other things that I'm designing at the moment around this really important topic, because it's helped me redefine my life. Even in the last 11 days, it's really been such a eye-opener for me. And even while organizing this summit, I had times and moments where I'm going, what am I doing here? Because it started triggering all those buttons, all those emotions that I had pressed down. So each layer of my journey is different as well. Anyway, thank you for joining in. If you have come across this on YouTube and going, what in the world is this Joy and Abundance Summit? I can't find it. Just give me an email on the email below in the description, and I'll send you how you can get in touch with the summit and all the speakers, and listen to their absolute incredible wisdom. So from my heart, thank you again, much gratitude. And for my little girl who I said fast, what would I say to my little girl on her path of joy and abundance? I would say to her, you are divine. You are worthy to create whatever you wish. Go out into the world, be the love, be that joy, and receive that abundance with all of your heart. But that is where your superpower lies. Namaste.